May, she said she does IP law, which is like patents and trademarks and all of that stuff, all the tech stuff. Caroline does criminal defense, which is representing like criminals who are charged, not criminals, but people who are charged with crime. Sharon and I are doing business and corporate stuff, but she does the litigation and I do the transaction. So just bear that in mind when we go through the presentations. So to stay relevant to your age group in high school, the four of us were kind of brainstorming to figure out, what were we thinking about at the time that we were, even considering, careers? Did we even know that we wanted to pursue a career in law? So we kind of wanted to share our background story a little bit with you guys to tell you how our journey was to get to where we are now. So did we know we wanted to pursue a career in law in high school? So these are some of the questions that I thought of to kind of brainstorm and jog our memory. And like, what did we really aspire to be in high school? What did we major in college? At what point did we know we wanted to go to law school? Did we go straight to law school? What kind of jobs helped us best prepare for law school? And what are some, just basic character traits and skills that are required to be a good lawyer? So I'm going to just pick any one of us just to kind of give us a little, like a brief synopsis of how, what our journey looked like. And I'll start with May, because you're just a good speaker in general. So set the tone for the rest of us. So don't F it up, and you're muted.
You can't set me up like that, dude. You can't do that.
You're like the lead. You're like the speaker, so go.
First of all, thanks for having me over here. I want to give you a little bit of my journey, and then we go through some of these points. I'm a Chinese immigrant. I came here when I was 13 years old, fresh off the boat, dropped off in a little town in Indiana. And at that time, my English was horrible and not really knowing anything. But when I was younger, pre-coming to America, my dream was always to be a lawyer. And that probably has something to do with really a stupid thing. It was watching, for those of you, I'm going to outdate myself, Andy Lau. He's a famous Chinese actor. He starred in this amazing movie when I was little as a lawyer. And I just thought, oh my God, that looks so cool. You get to wear these funky wigs because it's British system. And there's just something about that spoke to me, but most importantly, it's because he was there to help people. And I think I have one of these personalities that I kind of sort of nosy. Whenever there's something going on, I like to know what's going on. If somebody's in trouble, I like to help them. A lot of times I feel like lawyers are sort of first responders. You don't really call the lawyer unless, something's wrong. Of course, after I came to America, I really didn't think that was possible because my language barrier. And I had a lot of self-confidence issues. I really didn't know what I was wanting to do. So I did what what people thought Asians should do, which is go into medicine. And I had a biology degree as an undergrad. I did the EMT thing. I thought that's what I wanted to do, or that's what I ought to do. And it really just didn't speak to me. I really just didn't enjoy that. So I didn't go straight to law school. Even after college, I still didn't have enough confidence or know-how to understand that that's something I could do. I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't have a network such as what you guys are doing. You're so advanced. I'm so impressed at what Eunice and a group of friends can put together, where you're looking out for folks to look out for you. Didn't have that. So what I did end up doing was the job I could find at the time was sort of medical and chemical sales. At that time, it was the best job for me because it paid, and I got out of my parents' house and I was just really happy. And, it's actually a very cushy job. You get paid and basically taking people out to dinners and lunch and do your pitches. Mm-hmm. So, but I got kind of bored and I felt unchallenged. And I saw my friend a girlfriend was taking the LSAT, and I saw this big fat book and I picked it up and I thought, wow, I could actually do this. So then I started my journey. I studied about it. I started really trying to figure out what lawyers do. And if you really want to ask me, it's there to just really solve people's problems. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed people coming to me with issues. And with that, I embarked on a journey to go to law school. I took the LSAT the first time. I didn't do so well. I didn't study for it much. I got nervous. I know I could have done better. So I went back, I took a course, and I did much better. And with that, I was able to have a lot of different choices of law school. I chose University of Illinois at that time. That was one of the top 25 schools. And that allowed a lot of doors to be open because, you know, with law schools, unfortunately, where you go, it matters more than some of the other degrees and whatnot. I think one of the questions here is what kind of jobs help you prepare best for law school? And I think that's a great question because I have interviewed literally hundreds of folks. I've hired a lot of people, and I always like those that have had some work experience. I myself, as an immigrant, I have worked so many jobs. I clean houses, I deliver pizza, I sew knives, I even did tassel corn. We could talk about that some other time. But what having jobs is really give you practical experience. It makes you understand how the real world works. I often think about, I know a group of students here are very studious. You guys study hard. But I have to think back, everything I learned, I learned from real life. A lot of it I learned from the job. I don't really remember much what I learned at school, but I remember, you know, the interactions with people, situations that come up and how to handle that. My sales job, for example, which I thought when I went to law school, that was sort of a waste of time, but it ended up really helping me become who I am today, which I'm very proud of. I have a team. I'm at a really great firm. I love what I do, even though it's difficult at times and it's challenging, but I am never bored as I was in that sales job. However, the sales job prepared me for how to handle people. And many lawyers forget that being a lawyer is a service. So ultimately you have to service your clients, which means those skill sets you learn by being a server, by being, you know, working at a clothing store. So one thing I want you to remember is everything you're doing today, all the jobs that you might go, this is so mundane, this is so boring, it will serve you. It will serve you down your journey. You will learn something from all those things. If not anything is, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life, that will propel you, that will drive you. Even when I went to law school, I still didn't quite know what it was all about. It was difficult, but I loved it. I really enjoyed the academic challenge, figuring out sort of puzzle pieces, logical reasons. And I think law school education is one of the best educations. It allows you to understand what's going on in this country, what the basic framework of our laws are. Why is the Supreme Court there? What is the Constitution? And as all of you know, this is so relevant right now with what's going on in our country right now.
True.
So IP, I fell into it, intellectual property. I had a science degree. It's interesting, patent law is one of those few areas in the law that you have to take a separate bar. Everything else, you could take a general state bar and you could practice in that state. With patents, you have to take a patent bar and you have to have either enough science courses or you have to have a science degree. And I just happened, it wasn't designed that I had the science degree when I was an undergrad. But I really enjoy it. It's the intersection of technology and law. So I get to see all sorts of fun, new things. I get to help clients build what they want to do. I'll move on from that, making sure to get the other speakers some time, but I'll go back to that.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of hold, because we're going to go into that a little bit later in the slides to describe what our daily lives are or looks like. But I just want to piggyback on what May said. I think it echoes and it resonates with me in the sense that I don't think we knew what we wanted to do. Like, I thought I was going to be an interior designer. I thought, you know, I'm good at crafts. I love making things. And so I wanted to be an interior designer. And then my parents said, no, you don't major in minor things and you don't do a hobby for your career. You could do that on the side. So think about long term. And so it was either med school or law school. And I ended up doing law school because I sucked at math. I hated math. I was the atypical Asian who didn't enjoy math. I actually was better at writing. So I went into law school. I majored in econ at a UC. And I think I knew what I wanted to do only after I completed college and realized that, like May, a lot of the adult, my parents and their friends, they all came to me to ask for help. Whenever they had a bill or they had some sort of dispute, they would always bring their mail over to me and be like, Min, what is this? Can you read this and figure it out? And I don't know why they would come to me. They had their own kids who spoke, perfect English too. And they always came to me to figure it out because I would explain to them in Korean or whatever language and I would do the translation and I would just take care of the whole thing. So I think you have to have the personality where you care enough and you understand and you empathize enough that, to make them feel like they're taken care of. As far as jobs go, I think I did everything under the sun. I worked at the mall selling clothes. I worked at restaurants as a hostess and, seating people. I worked with the professors in college to write books and their, workbooks and study guides. I did everything that came to me that I got paid. I did tutoring, whatever paid me, well, I just did it. I think the best jobs are where I'm constantly interfacing with people. I think people skills is a huge necessity for lawyers because you don't just sit behind a desk and work all day. You're constantly talking either with your clients, with the opposing counsel, with mediators. You have to be able to articulate your thoughts in an organized fashion and be able to convince them why your position is correct. And that's what they're paying you for. So if you don't have good interpersonal skills and you cannot connect well with people, that won't serve you well. So I think communication skills are key. Being able to relate and have good interpersonal skills are really good to be a good lawyer. So Sharon, why don't you spend a couple minutes just to kind of touch upon what we haven't discussed, because I just want to spend a little bit more time in the back end.
I'm probably different from Min and May in different reasons. I wanted to be an attorney from the get-go. I think that from talking to my parents, who helped guide me, and I was like, what am I good at? And you guys have these questionnaire forms where you can kind of figure out your personality traits now at school, where it helps you a little bit. And just so you know a little bit about my background, I have 3 girls. 2 are in college. 1 is at University of Washington, but we've just transferred her back home. So she's virtual. We have another one, our middle daughter started her first year at Cal Poly Pomona with an engineering degree. She's committed to play soccer. And then we have a 12-year-old who's kind of all over the place. She's at a national soccer team, won 4 state championships in soccer. And she does taekwondo, and she's 2 belts away from her black belt. And then also does softball at a pretty high level. So we do academics at a high level, but we also do extracurriculars at a very high level, because I can't tell you enough what I learned. I played, 2 sports in college, and so I was on the varsity softball team and I did tennis. And so I can't tell you enough, the traits that you learn from being in a team sport carries you so far. Everyone has its purpose. You have a leader, you have a team captain, but you have everybody that's making the team work. in your job scenario, that also is an impactful person. I mean, because everyone plays its part and everyone has its purpose. And so so I'm sorry to go a little bit off, but I wanted to give you a little bit of that background. But the reason why I went to law school is that I have always been in leadership. I always was involved in student government. I was, striving for president of the class. And so in high school, I was ASB secretary at the time, different positions. And in law school, I was the SBA president of our entire law school at the time. So I just felt that just my personality, I was the youngest of three. I have two older brothers, but I was just kind of a no fear kind of person. I took different leadership roles, and my parents kind of saw that in me. So my undergraduate degree was at UC San Diego, and I went to the communications degree, and didn't know anything about it. My parents were like, it's interesting because my parents were like, you're only going to apply to UC schools. You're not going to apply to anywhere else. You're just going to go to UC. And I had no idea that there was a world beyond UC. But my parents wanted to keep me close. They wanted to save. And little do they know that, I mean, UCs are one of the top schools now, but and extremely hard to get into. So I went to communications, knowing that I thought that that was the major that I should go into as an attorney, but it really didn't help me. It was more, communications was at UC San Diego, mind you, was more for media. So if I wanted to go to broadcasting, if I wanted to do like marketing, if I wanted to go to, newspaper writing, or, being on ABC News or Fox News or whatever, that would have been the route, because one of my requirements was to do video, snips and so forth. But understanding audience and understanding how people react and social media aspect of it. So I would have probably preferred going to history or poli-sci, political science, because I think it would be more beneficial for me. But I don't regret it. I thought it was a good take, knowing that I could change majors if I needed to. But I agree with Min in the sense that having those interpersonal skills are super important. I will tell you that my daughter, my oldest daughter, is on a pre-med track. So for those that are thinking going to pre-med, what they're requiring for your pre-med track students is to take a year off before you go to medical school, which is insane, because a lot of parents don't understand, like, how would you take a break? That's a year break and your mind is not active. What they're wanting for medical students, or even for any students in general, is they're realizing that your generation, which is harder, you're in your computers, you're in space, you're looking at Instagram, you're looking at Facebook, or you're looking at TikTok, and things are so when you're talking in person to another person, you're not talking about real life things. And so as a doctor or as an attorney, being able to talk at a personal level is super important, because that client or that patient needs to have good bedside manners and to be professional at the same time, and to be able to communicate what needs to be told to them. And so so before I went to law school, I was like, I worked in an administrative job. I was like, I need to make a ton of money. So I did administrative work. So I made like $18, $20 an hour. And that time was a lot of money, because everyone was making like $8 an hour in my time. And I worked in an office environment, so I wore work clothes, and I got to be in the work environment, and I wanted an 8 to 5 job. I wanted my nights free. I wanted to be able to hang out with my friends in the evening. And so I was more about wanting to make as much money as possible under the circumstances. And then realizing that I needed a job that was just more fun before I went to law school. So the job that I got was at Starbucks. And I only worked there for 2.5 months, and I realized I really needed to go to law school. But it was a really cool job in the sense that I got to meet people with different backgrounds, different experiences, how they got there. But I got to meet clients all the time. Customers all the time, where we'd talk and would chit chat and be able to talk. And so you have to have eye contact with these people. You need to be able to talk about, hey, how's your day going? Like, what do you want today? Like, so it's a life lesson as an attorney. You get to see your clients in so many different situations. So that's it. I think that I've probably spoken too much, but I want Caroline to speak as well.
Okay, Caroline.
Okay, thanks. I wanted to be a doctor when I was in high school because my mom was a nurse at UCI, and she told me that if I wanted to be in the medical profession, that I should be a doctor because they have the most power in the hospitals. So when I went to college, I started off as a bio major at UCLA, and I was 2 years as a bio major, and I hated it. Bio was okay, physics was great, chemistry killed me, and OChem was horrible. And I still feel like I get nightmares like when someone talks about OChem. So I did what a good Asian daughter is not supposed to do. I left biology and I changed my major to history because I was thinking about what I really enjoyed studying, and I really enjoyed studying history. And I told my parents, and my parents got mad at me, and they said, what are you going to do with history? And I said, I don't know yet, but all I know is that I really enjoy my classes. So I graduated with a history major. I did not know what I wanted to do. I thought maybe, I took so many science classes that I thought maybe I'd complete my science general education and go to like optometry school. I externed with an optometrist in Irvine, and she did like vision therapy for kids who had like dyslexia, and I thought that was super cool because I could work with kids. I thought maybe pharmacy school, but then I was like, pharmacists look like their lives are boring. I just knew I wanted to help people, and I knew I wanted to do something where I was like constantly like on the move and not just sitting behind a desk. So I ended up not going to law school right away. What I did was I got my emergency credential, and I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in the Santa Ana School District with an emergency school, credential. At the time, they needed math and science teachers. So I taught math. It was a Title I school. Most of the kids were lower income Latino kids. I had a school assistant who was doubled as my interpreter, my Spanish interpreter. I enjoyed it so much. I thought, okay, I'm gonna become a teacher. But I had already applied to law school. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna see if I like law school. I'm gonna check it out. And I decided, if I don't, then I can always go back into teaching. Law school was okay. I did a little bit of a different route. I fell madly in love with someone and got married at the ripe old age of 24. What ended up happening is that my husband and I went to law school together. So it was like we were roommates, but then we were married, and we were like living in this tiny, tiny apartment. And so that's how I started law school. And then after law school, in law school, I really liked my criminal law, my evidence classes, and also my constitutional law classes. And I did not know what kind of law I wanted to practice. And then after law school, I clerked with a judge, and the judge told me that I should consider criminal defense. And that was the first time I even thought about what criminal defense was, what it meant to be a public defender. I always knew what a prosecutor was, and I knew that like in Korea, being a prosecutor is like a really elite thing. And so my parents really wanted me to be a prosecutor, but I felt like personally, the defense was just more in line with what my personal beliefs were, and also something that I found really, really interesting. And I think it's great. Yeah, I think you have to have interpersonal skills. I think also, you know, I think I hear a lot of students say like they like to argue, and so their parents tell them, oh, you should be a lawyer because you argue so much. The thing is, yeah, I mean, I think you have to be able to speak well, you have to get your point across, but I think more than being able to argue, you have to listen, because you have to be able to listen to your clients, listen to what the judge says, listen to, you know, and just be detail oriented, and just be tenacious. And it seems like you guys are all, you know, go-getters. And so I think those are some of the qualities or skills that you need to be a lawyer.
Hey, you're muted. So to be mindful of the time, just the takeaway from this slide is that even if you don't know what the hell you're going to be doing, just do it. Because whatever you do, you're going to gain something from it, right? And it could be, you could fall in love with something that drives you to a career aspiration, as superficial as just the way that they look. You know, I enjoyed watching TV with lawyers in it because I loved how they dressed. And, you know, you could just fall in love with something as superficial as that. And if it's going to get you to finish and, you know, get you to cross that finish line, by all means do that. But it's just people skills and just being on top of your shit. Just like how you guys do at school. Just stay on top of your shit, get your shit done, and you'll be fine. But just trying to figure out what the hell you want to do for the rest of your life, that's the real challenge. And we're not going to lie to you guys. We didn't know. I mean, with the exception of Sharon, who's like, you know, a know-it-all, you know, like we all didn't know. We just stumbled upon whatever the hell we were going to do. We didn't know. We all worked at some random jobs, you know, but, you know, all of us, we all thought we were going to do something else, except for Sharon. But just understand that the takeaway was from this slide is you don't have to know what you're doing or even what the hell you're going to major in college. College is where you find yourself. That's really what it is. It's not going to help you become something or mold you into something. It's just basically molding who you are. Okay. So the next slide is law school considerations. If you think, okay, I think I've got what it takes to go to law school, and I think with, you know, through the process of elimination, I think better than med school or accounting or engineering, I think law is going to best suit my personality. So what should you think about? And what do you need to prepare, right? And I'm just going to put everything on here so that we could just discuss it. LSAT, I think May said that she saw that thick book. It's sort of like studying for your SATs. Everything's test driven, you guys. So, you know, when you study for your SATs to go into college, the next step after you graduate from college is to study for your LSATs, okay? And the LSAT is broken up into, I don't know, 3 or 4 different areas where it's like analytical thinking. You know, it's like a bunch of multiple choice and writing. And you just study for it, just like anything else. Obviously, the higher the score you get, the better, you know, schools that you get into. And then you guys can just jump in anytime, ladies, like if you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, this is May. I would just add that with law school, you know, in the United States, unlike in Europe, for example, where law school is actually an undergrad discipline.
That's true.
So at this point, you know, we can talk to you all day and you could watch, I mean, lawyer shows are fun to watch. Lawyer movies are fun to watch. They're usually about folks that are arguing in court, but, you know, most cases don't go to trial. Min and I probably really don't go to court that much. I used to. Of course, Sharon and Caroline do, but, you know, it's not kind of what you see. I'll let them explain. So there's going to be a big time gap between now where you are in high school versus when you go to law school. So I encourage you, if you know definitely you want to go to law school, I think there's some sort of set of majors that most law school folks take, such as, you know, communication, poli-sci, criminal justice, or history, or things like that, more liberal arts pursuit. I would also say that if you don't know, or if you're interested in something else, the great thing about law school is that it sort of doesn't really matter where your undergrad is. I mean, you know, I think good grades is important. LSAT is important. So as an insurance policy, it would be great if you can actually, you know, do something that an undergrad that maybe you know, that interests you in other ways. Like, I'm very glad, even though I took science, I'm very glad I did that because it opened other doors. Like, for example, patent attorneys are very needed. If you study computer software, you go become a patent attorney, you are scooped up like that. If you're in biology, if a lot of my patent folks are PhDs, but they don't want to stuck doing research, they like writing patents. So just don't be afraid to explore your undergrad. Don't think so much about law school, because it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
So just go ahead and do what is it when you want to do. And even I'll tell you, I mean, I didn't even find myself in college yet. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And it's really okay. Life is a journey. I mean,
No, we're lost even now, right?
Yeah, we're lost in different ways.
It's fine.
But it's just so much pressure. I see you guys, you have a lot of pressure on you guys. And part of, I think, going to college is to explore, and knowing what you don't want to do is really important. I think it's a process of elimination, you know? So, but then in terms of law school, I think the slides say it, you know, local versus out of state.
Yeah. I think we should get through the rest of the list, mate, because it's like almost 41.
Yeah. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Do you want to just jump into some of the other slides?
Yeah, I'll just hit it. Just like LSATs,
Yeah.
just study your asses off and get a good score, okay? And then, like May said, it's all about grades. So even if I had friends who majored in music in undergrad and still went to law school, it's just about how challenged you are in the coursework that you select to study during your undergrad, to show what you did and how well you do in it. That really matters. And so don't try to pigeonhole yourself into thinking that you have to take a certain like major or choose a certain major because you're trying to get into law school. It's more like, okay, well, who am I? What can I excel in? And how can I challenge myself? That's, I think, the important thing. Local versus out of state is just basically self-explanatory. Like, do you want to stay local? Do you want to, you know, live in New York, whatever? Accredited schools, you know, these are the type of schools that you want to go into. Obviously, if it's not ABA accredited, then it's going to be harder for you to find a job, because, you know, the law firms are going to want people who graduated from ABA accredited schools. So look for that. Public versus private, you know, public schools meaning like UCLA, right? UC Davis, all the UCs, they're obviously less expensive than privates, but then, you know, it's harder to get into because there's so many people who want to get in there because of the financial considerations. So you have to think about that. Alumni connections, you have to think about, okay, well, how strong is their alumni, you know, system, and career opportunities. Like, if I went to law school in San Francisco, and I moved straight after I graduated to Korea and then back to Orange County, I didn't have anybody. I had like no social connections or professional connections. So you have to start over. Whereas if you studied there and you settled down there, you have your colleagues who spread out in that local region. So these are some of the things that you should think about when you select a school.
Wait, so can I add one thing? So in the local versus out-of-state law schools, one thing that is super important that people don't understand is that when you apply to law schools, there's a host of different law schools out there. But what's important is that if you do, and you're entitled to practice out of state and say, hey, you know what, I'm in college now, I want to check out, you know, New York. I want to check out Texas. I want to check out, you know, all the other states I've never been to, which I would say I've told my kids the same thing. I'm like, I don't want you to stay here on the West Coast all the time. I want you to see different seasons. I want you to meet different people. I want you to understand, because this is the best way to like broaden your horizon. As
Yeah, but Sharon, if they go out of state, right, to a different law school,
yes,
and they stay there, they have to get, you know, the license there. So if
yeah,
you go
that's what I was
then
going to
you
get
have
at.
to get a Texas license, and then if
Yeah.
you want to move back home to, like, you know, California, you have to get another license here.
So that's what I was going to get at, is that unfortunately when you do practice out of state, that law school focuses on that state's law.
Right.
And so if you're studying if you know you're going to come back to California, you then need to not only maybe possibly, you know, study for the Texas bar, but then you're going to have to understand California's law, which is
Right.
a little bit different than other states. So then you almost have to study for 2 separate bars, which are pretty similar, but a little bit nuances that may have to change. So you have to like switch gears. So it's important for you to understand that, like, I'm all for moving out of state, but then it's a totally different area of law, 2 different set of bars that you may possibly have to take. And so it's that is a drawback a little bit.
And the 2 hardest bar exams are California and New York. And New York has less writing, right? And it used to be a 3-day exam, bar exam, but it's changed to 2 days. So it's a little bit easier for you guys in that regard. So moving on to the lifestyle and legal careers, you guys, now you've gone through all the factors of how to choose a law school. Now we're going to try to figure out what kind of law are we going to go into. Transactional versus litigation. I think May hit it earlier about how May and I do mostly transactional work. We advise our clients on what to do to avoid trouble, to stay out of trouble, and to comply with the law. And then I think Sharon and Caroline, they're more about damage control. It's like shit hit the fan. Now we're going to go to court. We're going to have to try to do some damage control. And so they go to court, right? Caroline, Sharon?
Caroline?
She's muted.
Sorry, I was answering this chat. Yeah, I go to court. If you want to be a litigator and you want to be one of those attorneys that you see on TV where you're always in court, that's me. When I was a county public defender in Orange County, my day would start where I'm in court at 8:30, and I have a full calendar. I probably, touch, 20 files before lunchtime. And then we take an hour-and-a-half break at lunch, and then we come back. We have an afternoon calendar. And then afterwards, I would either go to jail and talk to my clients about their cases, or I'd go back to the office and I would do research and writing and prepare, like, a whole ton of cases for the next day. But court is fun. I go to trial. My goal is to always go to trial. I'm always fighting. I'm always advocating. I think if you want to be an attorney, especially for the females out there who are minority females or women of color, I want you to understand something. This job requires you to be tough. And a lot of Asian females are raised, especially if your parents are immigrants, to not challenge authority and to not disturb the status quo, right? But being an attorney means that you have a client that you're advocating for. And for me, it means that I have a client who everyone in the courtroom has already presumed guilty. And you know that our legal system is presumption of innocence, and that the government or the prosecutor has to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Therefore, I have to be the one who is their voice, right? And so no matter how guilty the police reports read, no matter how guilty people think my client already is, my job is to make sure he's got the best defense. And if that means going to trial, then we go to trial. And we have jury trials where basically you get 12 jurors in a box in the in the courtroom, and you present your evidence and you argue. So
Right. So you basically know if you enjoy being in the courtroom and whether or not you don't enjoy the courtroom when you go to law school. You have to take a course where everybody goes to the courtroom. It's like moot court, and you like do a case, you know, in law school. And I hated it. Right. So echoing off of what Caroline said, I think it kind of reminds me of what my undergrad professor said in sociology. He said, those of you who are looking to go to law school, the men in this room, they're going to train you to become assholes. And all the women in this room, they're going to train you to become bitches. That's basically what Caroline is saying. You're not going to get paid to be the nice guy. You know, you're being paid to fight for your clients. So you're basically going to go and become assholes and bitches in law school.
you don't have to. You can fight and not be a bitch.
No, I know, but you can't be like all like passive is what I'm saying.
No,
You be like all like nice and like you be nice, but you have an agenda and you're gonna like whack them in the head when you have the time to do it. That's what I'm basically saying. So we're gonna move on. Field of law, there's various types of fields of law: IP, business, employment, criminal, bankruptcy law, you know, immigration. There's so many different fields of law, and you don't do all of it, you guys. Like you have to pick something. So even during law school, just like how you would do in undergrad, you try to get as many job experiences out there. You try things out that you might not like. You try things out that you think you like, just so that you could cross it off your list and say, okay, I've done it. I don't like it. I thought I was going to become a DA. I worked at the DA's office, and I couldn't handle the murder and the pictures of dead people. So I said, nope, can't do that. So even in law school, you have to try and you know, do different kinds of jobs to know what you cannot do and what you want to do, right? So process of elimination, you just have to try it. And then as far as the size of a law firm you want to be working at, there's like solo practitioners, there's mid-sized, and there's big law. And May and Sharon, I think you guys both worked at big law, you know, and so maybe you could talk about that in your slide where you kind of describe your daily life. But these are the 4 different bullet points that you should consider when you choose the type of firm. Like billable requirements. We have billable requirements where you have to bill the clients on the case files that you work on. The number of attorneys who work at the firm culture. Do you guys work on the weekends? Do you not go home if the partners are there? And how much you're paid? Are you going to get paid market rate and be paid 6 figures right out of law school, or are you going to be making less than that? So this all goes into how hard you have to study in law school. You guys have to, do you want to add anything here before I move on? No? Okay, so now we're gonna go in the day in the life of presenters. Sharon, keep it brief. We have like 5 minutes, like 1 minute each. You're muted.
Unmute. Hi, I'm Sharon again. My job is, yes, I'm in the courtroom a lot and I argue with the judges. But I have to say that if you think that business litigation or any type of litigation is in the courtroom, you're not. And only the senior attorneys generally, or the partners, get to argue important motions until you've proven yourself that you're equipped to be able to understand the nuances and to be, it's almost like you're under attack. So if you have, you may think that you may have understood the law at one point in time, but the judge is going to question you and your principles in the law. So you have to understand the statutes, the cases, the holdings of the case, and to be able to analyze it and tell the court why it's distinguishable from the rest of the cases and why your facts are more important than the others. So you do have to be an advocate. But I have to tell you that if you think that business litigation or any type of litigation, other than crim law, you know, prosecution or defending, you're not in the courtroom a lot. You're probably like 10% in the courtroom. The majority of the work is understanding what your deadlines are, because litigation is all about deadlines, and you're under a cycle, you have a trial date, so you have to move on those deadlines and meeting that. You have to draft motions. You're an advocate, so you have to research what that area of law is and different motions, but you have to be savvy and to understand what motions would apply to those set of facts. Then you're talking to your client, updating them, giving status reports, and understanding that people don't have appetites for litigation. It's very expensive. So you have to have a budget and plan, because a lot of times what the client will realize is like, this is getting absurd. This is really getting cost. And depending on what your hourly rate, you are then billing at a very high rate, and they have to have that appetite.
Wait, what's your hourly?
My hourly is at $4.70. It's actually at a lower rate, but I do know. I mean, complex. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know attorneys that are charging like $700, $800 an hour, but our firm has chosen to keep me, even though I've been practicing for a long time, for $4.70. $4.70 an hour. Just trying to be so that we could do better work under the circumstances.
Okay, Caroline.
Sorry. So are we just talking about what our daily life is?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I basically said it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in there, but I spend most of my time in court. Yeah.
Yeah, and jail. Like, you don't hear that often. It's like, yeah, where were you, Caroline? Oh, I was in jail. I'm like, okay, that's great. I'll talk to you later.
Because most of my clients are in jail or prison, and so I go visit them often. So that's like kind of like my office too.
Yeah. Is it scary for you?
No, but
Okay.
I think it's exciting. I love it. And unlike Min, when she was interning at the DA's office, I'm not bothered by gruesome photos, or I kind of find it fascinating that like people have the capacity to commit certain crimes. And for me, it's a way of understanding the humanity of my clients. Yes, they've done something bad, and I don't discount that. But at the same time, I'm trying to figure out why. What would make someone just snap or break? What kind of lifestyle, what kind of upbringing, what kind of background has this person gone through? A lot of times my clients who are perpetrators are also victims when they were younger. So in my mind, I'm trying to figure out what are the answers? Why is this happening? And then to help my client so it doesn't happen again. And then also to present to the court and to the DA, this is why. Let me give you some background on why my client did what he did. So
Yeah.
it's not just like this is a bad person, because we all know in life that people, may be good, but may have done bad things, or may have made mistakes. You know what I mean? So
Okay. May?
Hi there. Yes, so regarding intellectual property, in my earlier days, I did a lot of patents and trademark. And what I love is I work with entrepreneurs. I work with them trying to figure out what did they come up with that can be protected by one of these intellectual property rights. It's exciting because I get to see a lot of new things. I get to build things for them. And they really I've developed a lot of long-term relationships with the clients. So, like I take calls, unfortunately, all the time, but I do feel like they've become so important to me. They're rolling out a product next week. They need to know if they could, roll it out protect it before they roll it out. So that's kind of, in terms of my legal work. But what I have also done is a lot of managing. I think this is, you go to law school, they teach you about sort of the legal issues and things like that. But I strongly recommend for those who know you want to be a lawyer, take some accounting classes, take some business management courses. They might not be as sexy as, as some of the other ones, but they're very useful because really this business is all about dealing with people. every day I have to manage my team, I have to manage client expectations. And, you know, we talk a lot about how do you come across, what are those interpersonal skills? A really big one is about having empathy and really having good listening skills and reading the situation, reading people. And you get that by, like we said earlier, doing a lot of different jobs. I want to touch, I know we don't have a lot of time. Someone asked a question, what's the difference between disrespectful and being defensive, and how does that play in the courtroom? I think one thing, many stereotypes about lawyers is that we're just very loud. We're kind of in your face and like to argue. You certainly have those type of attorneys. I know myself and these three fabulous ladies here, we bring a different type of energy. We bring a feminine energy. In my younger days, I try to be more masculine. I try to be very aggressive. I'm going to hit you too. And I find that usually doesn't work well for me. Instead, now, you know, when I deal with somebody who's very hostile, I usually become very quiet, and that whole energy changes. So it's interesting. You could be assertive without, and still be very strong without having to be defensive or disrespectful. Yelling, cussing is oftentimes, I see it, never really works to achieve your goals. Civility is very important in our profession, because at the end of the day, the lawyers, you're going to see each other again. You're going to work on matters. So if you start playing dirty and calling names, it doesn't behoove you to have a long-term professional relationship with folks that's in your community that you depend on to give you business. So other thing is managing. I mean, I have to do billing, I have to do everything. And as it gets more and more, this is why we are such good friends, there's family commitments. It becomes a lot. So one thing I want to tell you guys is enjoy your youth, please. Go have fun, just, you know, enjoy it. Study abroad. This is very important. If you remember anything that I tell you, study abroad as much as you can, because when you see you're not going to have that kind of time when you work, no matter what you do, to travel the world, to see things. So if you can, find schools that have great study abroad program and make that commitment. It's only going to enrich you.
Mm-hmm. True. Okay, so mine, I'm going to keep it short. I pretty much do basically what the other ladies do, except going to court. I only go to court or for like mediation or arbitration, but I usually we settle out. So we basically just meet with people, you know, hear them out. I prepare, you know, contracts for them. I negotiate the deals for them. I represent startup businesses just like May, but I don't work with the IP side, which is like patents and trademark. I help them, you know, put together the deals so that they can make money. So May and I are lovers, and Sharon and Caroline are haters. Okay, that came out wrong, but you know what I mean. We're not.
Don't out us now.
I know.
Please,
Okay, so I let the
these
cat out of the
kids.
bag. All
Oh
right.
my goodness.
Oh well. So, and then I think half our time is spent on working and meeting with people, and half our time is with like admin stuff. You know, like, you know, I sit on various boards and committees, so in the community. So it's not just, you know, working, but I also serve in the community, just like May with the OCBA, Sharon with the OCBA, Caroline with the Korean Bar Association and the OCBA. We all are very active in the community. It's not just in the office. So I think that's really important. Main takeaways from this, you know, meeting is just have a holistic view, you guys, in deciding what you want to do. It's not just money. It's not, you know, the power. It's what you want out of life, right? So it's like, do you guys want a family? What kind of lifestyle do you want? What kind of financial considerations do you need to be mindful of to make that happen? What kind of time commitment do you want to make to your careers? Because if you are working 24/7, you're not going to be able to have that time to spend to travel or, you know, for family or whatnot. And then also your reputation, you know, like you have to guard your reputation for, you know, with your life, because that's basically what's going to drive your career, right? So if you do anything stupid, you know, that's just really going to follow you to the, you know, to the end of this earth, So make sure you don't do anything stupid. Make sure your social media is clean and do everything what you can to do the right thing.